We are live. Let's wait for some people to tune in. Great. Hello, everyone. We're Dogtopia. My name's Tony, and we're here with our environmental biologist, a Dogtopia expert. This is Lorraine Rhoads. And with the start of spring, we figured what better time to discuss doggy allergies. So we'll let people join. But did you know that dogs also get allergies, same as humans? As the weather begins to warm all across the country, we thought it would be important to discuss doggy allergies. So we have lots of props and plants to discuss with you. So Lorraine, kick it off.
Yes, it's interesting because dogs can actually be allergic to the very same pollens and other allergens as humans. But their symptoms can look different and can often be harder to spot. For us, we usually come down with the sneezing, the coughing. I know lately my eyes have been really itchy and watery, which of course makes everything kind of messy and feel uncomfortable. Some people develop rashes if they have sensitive skin. So dogs don't actually have the same upper respiratory system and sinus cavities that we have. So what our symptoms might look like are going to be different when it comes to a dog. So usually their allergy symptoms are primarily seen and noticed in their skin.
Oh, so they're like an itchy.
Absolutely. Okay. Itchy. It's no fun. So the warm spring air is bringing pollen in trees and shrubs and flowers, as you can see, because we are here. Even though it looks like we're at the beach, spring break, at the beach.
Spring break.
We brought in a bunch of flowers and pots here so that you can see some, we're going to talk about things that are that cause allergies, and then I have some other examples of things that are better to plant in your garden as well.
Okay.
So that's what's happening right now. It's starting to warm up across the country, and we're starting to see those pollen counts go up. Oftentimes on your weather report, the news can kind of let you know when those allergy days are at their worst. So it's good to pay attention to that. So dogs primarily get allergies and have itchy skin around their eyes, their nose, and their ears. Often you'll see them on their foot pads, you know, that they get that little red, rusty, kind of their hair is starting to get rusty. That's from licking, and that's really showing you that they're suffering from some allergies. They can also be itchy on their rear end too, and that can be from scooting and environmental allergies as well. So mild symptoms, and I'm sure a lot of you have experience with this. I know a lot of dogs suffer just like people suffer from environmental allergies. So mild symptoms are going to look like itchy back at the base of their tail, you know, where they just kind of do that moaning, groaning, like scratch my back and that special magic spot. I will caution you that that spot is also a favorite of fleas. So I think it's really important to just also make sure that you're flea-free.
Yeah.
It's harder with dark coat breeds to make sure that they don't have fleas. So I always recommend making sure your dog is completely covered with preventative flea and tick medication. I think that's really important.
Very helpful.
Helps with allergies too. So you'll see that increased scratching. Sometimes their ears just get inflamed and itchy, and you see that head shaking more and more. They can get itchy, watery eyes, just like humans. Sometimes that's harder to notice, but it's definitely possible. And you can see increased sneezing. That's sort of what the mild symptoms are. If the allergies are left untreated or kind of not noticed, they can develop into more moderate to severe symptoms.
So more than just itching. Okay.
And that can look like a spot where they've just begun to get licked in, and kind of like a hot spot where it develops and it gets scabbier and wet and moist, and it can often have a not pleasant odor or smell to that spot. They can begin chewing on their paws, and like I was mentioning before, it can start to stain the hair into like a rusty color, and that can really be an indication of more serious allergies. Snoring at night, that's actually an allergy symptom.
Really?
Yeah, because what's happening is their sort of upper respiratory is all getting inflamed. So if your dog's not typically a snoring dog and you're all of a sudden noticing that, and it's also kind of
spring allergy season.
It's happening with other symptoms as well. I would definitely consider that part of the allergy symptoms.
Okay.
Constant licking. That's kind of interesting because that can wake you up in the middle of the night, that licking.
Yes.
Vomiting and diarrhea are more commonly associated with food allergies, so we can talk about that. I mainly am focusing on environmental allergies today, but I'll touch on some food things later. So if untreated, those areas that are causing inflammation for your pup can lead to secondary bacterial infections. And it even opens up the skin to be vulnerable to like a yeast infection too, which can be so hard to treat and really, really uncomfortable. So those are some symptoms to look for. If your pup is having those symptoms, it's time to consider allergies for sure.
Okay, good to know. All right.
Yes.
So we all know that like spring is when everyone is outside planting gardens or just enjoying their backyard. Are there certain plants that you recommend we avoid if the dog does have allergies?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things I really want to focus on first are the grasses, because most of us have grass in our environment. One of the more common ones is this Bermuda grass. So Bermuda grass is planted all across the U.S. It's a hardy lawn grass, and I have a little bit of an example here of what it looks like. It can be kind of tall and grow quite a few inches tall. Most of us cut it before and keep it mowed short before it grows the flower part. The flower is where the pollen comes from. This is called the inflorescence. And I've got a little example here where you can see what that flower head looks like. Let me get a little closer. So you can see just what that pollen is going to look like. Most of the time, the pollen floats through the air and can be almost invisible and microscopic. So it can be just present in the environment, floating through the air, causing lots of allergies, which is no fun. So it's important to potentially cut your grass before that flower head develops. Bermuda is one of those grasses that can actually still make pollen and other allergens. Yeah, so unfortunately, it's not a wonderful one for allergies. It's possible to go to your nursery and ask your professionals there for a hybrid species.
Okay.
They are hybridizing grass species to make them a little more allergy friendly. So I recommend making sure you cut that Bermuda before it develops that pollen.
Okay.
Okay, so next I want to talk about this one, and you can see in the contrast of my t-shirt the foxtail shape that this grass creates. These are called foxtails. That's not the actual common name of this particular grass, but I mention it because it's very similar to the family of foxtails that are really common throughout the North America. So there's lots of species that do this. So it has a medusa head or tangle head. That's another type of grass that makes this kind of top. So foxtails, when these little seed heads just pop right off and fall. So walking your dog outside in the environment means that these things can catch, and they're really quite sharp. Yeah. Surprisingly, they're sharp. They stick into the coat.
Paws or their coat?
Absolutely, into the paws, in between those toe pads.
Yeah.
Into the hair, in between.
Here's a close-up.
Yeah, take a look at what that one looks like. So what happens when that foxtail gets on the coat of your pup is that it goes only one direction, and that's further and further deeper into the skin and tissue. Surgeons have pulled foxtails out of every place possible from a dog. We're talking all the way deep down into the middle ear, down the ear canal. They've pulled them out of digestive systems and in between toe pads. They've also created ulcers. So it's really important to check your dogs for foxtails.
We have them like all over our desks here.
Yeah, so they're just falling off. So you can imagine how easy this is to just pick up on your dog's coat and really cause trouble from the very beginning. These really lead to a lot of infections. Now, I don't mention this because I think it causes allergies in the same way that Bermuda does. It's not the same type of pollen, but since we're talking about grasses, I couldn't resist talking about foxtail because it's one of those important ones to discuss. Okay, so moving on, we have the bottle brush plant, and I've got that one right here in this line of vision. So bottle brush is on the list of things that can cause allergies, and it kind of doesn't look like it's going to be that much of a problem until you get up close to this plant. This plant, let me just see if I can get a little bit closer here. See, I just picked this up at your local hardware. This guy has got all kinds of pollens on the top of this. Yes, so we're going to show you, if you just get a little bit closer on that, you can see just how tiny those pollen seeds are. And what happens is the needle-like part of that bottle brush is also quite irritating and sharp. It's funny how sharp they are being a flexible plant, but they're very sharp and they'll stick into the coat and cause quite a bit of irritation. So this is not one of my favorite plants to have in a dog-friendly home or environment.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And of course, we have all kinds of things in bloom right now. The maple trees, the juniper, elm, mulberry. I know in some places you're not even allowed to plant mulberry unless it's not going to make seeds because it can be such a terrible allergen. We're out here in the Southwest and it's actually considered an invasive species. So it's not recommended to plant those. Oak and pecan trees are all blooming right now. So those definitely increase the pollen in your environment. And next on my list, I've got the lilies. Now, right now, it smells so heavenly in here. I wish you could all smell how nice it smells here because we have some members of the lily family. We've got the hyacinth and tulips and Easter lilies because it's just about that season. I mean, it smells pretty heavenly. Nice. But none of the plants in the none of the plants in the lily family are actually safe for dogs. They're particularly toxic for cats.
Okay.
But they are an allergen to dogs as well. And none of those should really be accessible to your pup. They are quite dangerous. So I don't recommend anything from the lily family.
Good to know.
So I'm going to have to leave these in the office because we're not really going to have
each have dogs and cats.
open to the dogs. Yes. Okay, so of course there are other things to consider. Mold spores. I do not have an example of mold spores. I didn't bring any of those. No.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yes, so mold and dust definitely cause allergies. That's something that's really prevalent in a lot of environments. Hopefully not so much mold spores, but definitely dust. Dander and feathers. Dander is just the extra skin cells that get sloughed off of people and pets, and then feathers. Cigarette smoke causes allergies. A lot of dogs go through the same similar symptoms as secondhand smoke. Yep, they can get bronchitis and they can get inflammation of the lungs, and they're considered allergic to it. So we also have food allergies. And food allergies are, like I was mentioning earlier, not really the main focus for today, but I wanted to mention that it can what's tricky is that it can be a combination of food allergies and environmental allergies that can also be making your pup miserable. Okay. That's no fun. So if you suspect food allergies, definitely work with your veterinarian because you probably need to be working on an elimination diet.
Okay. Just like a human.
Yeah. So a couple other things to mention that cause allergies can also be prescription medications. It's rare, but it can happen. Fleas, I know I mentioned that earlier. Fleas can definitely cause itchiness. And it's really interesting. It only takes a few bites of a flea, and it can create a reaction that lasts for a couple of weeks. Oh. So making sure prevention. Definitely. Prevention is the key. And other things like cleaning products in your home or shampoos and grooming products could also be a culprit. So if your pup is experiencing these type of symptoms, I think it's very important to just kind of go through the list and see what might be causing this.
Okay, that's a lot.
I know, it is.
It's a long list of allergies. Are there plants that you recommend? I know we went over the list that you do not recommend. Are there plants that you do recommend?
There are. There are some plants that are better. Okay. There's probably nothing that's really perfect out there because most of the plants out there are not necessarily safe for consumption. There are a few out there. So what I'd like to recommend and show you are better for allergies, but not necessarily recommended in terms of low toxicity or, if you've got a dog who's really digging up your garden and eating things, be mindful that that's probably not a good idea. So what I'll do is I'll just have you take a look at this. Yeah, we've got some Dahlia. Dahlia's got a really beautiful flower, and it does not create the same kind of inflorescence and pollen as some other flowers. Okay. And marigolds. Marigolds kind of have a skunkier smell, but they just last. It's such a nice hardy flower and can really do well in the garden without causing allergies. So
I'm in the jungle, everyone.
We're hiding Tony. So I've got some bamboo. There's lots of different ways to use bamboo, inside and outside. They are even, there's a bamboo palm that is a good thing to plant as well. And then I'll just mention a few other things here. We've got an ornamental grass. This ornamental grass is actually really interesting because it blooms a beautiful purple inflorescence, but it makes more like a different type of flower than you'd expect, and it's actually on the list of more allergen-friendly plants to plant in the garden. So I kind of like this one. So checking in with your gardener and saying, you know, I really want to make sure I'm cutting down the allergies in my environment. What do you recommend? I think is definitely a good way to start. Inside, and I guess even outside, you can plant bromeliads. Bromeliads are those beautiful, they almost look like pineapple plants that have different shades of red and all the way through the green. Those are pretty good to plant as well. Succulents. Easy. Yep. And catnip. Dogs can eat catnip. Okay. And of course, catnip is a nice member of the mint family. It kind of acts like a weed in some cases, so be careful where you plant it that you like it. Yeah. But I do think catnip's a good one. Okay. This is so helpful. If your dog does suffer allergies, are there ways that you recommend to help them or to treat them? Obviously to avoid certain plants, but anything else? Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so first, take a trip to the vet. It's important that you get some veterinarian advice because if this is a food allergy or if it's an environmental allergy, they're going to help you address that. First steps first. Your vet will perform an examination and may determine the best course, including medication or special baths. They might need, you know, if those first steps don't work and don't kind of give you the relief, then it'll probably be time to see a veterinarian dermatologist, and that might result in the prick test. And you're probably familiar with what that looks like in humans, where they prick a few different allergens into the skin, and then you can see almost immediately what is going to be the most reactive. Okay. So that is a good thing to do if necessary. But we'll start with the first things first. And just a quick note again about the fruit allergies. The only way to truly diagnose a fruit allergy is to do that elimination diet. Like I was mentioning earlier, your veterinarian will feed just basically a strict protein, 1 or 2 ingredients at a time for about 12 weeks. And that can be hard because during that time, it's incredibly important to make sure that your pup's not getting any side scraps or sneaky little treats or finding his way into the trash. It's like all hands on deck with the elimination diet. It's totally true. It's even flavored medication could have an ingredient in there that's allergic. So the goal is to remove all of those sources of allergy and allow the symptoms to kind of fade away and go away. Then they start adding 1 or 2 items back into that ingredient list to see what causes the reaction, if anything. So that's going to be that process. Also helpful information. Thank you. So my dog loves to play outside, but he does get itchy. Do I need to keep him inside this season? That doesn't really seem fair. It's not fair. So it's recommended to watch those weather reports for high allergy days. Okay. And if you can avoid walks during those days, or especially windy days when it's just kicking up in the air, I think that'll be a good way to prevent a lot of environmental allergies. So staying inside and keeping the windows closed during windy days is a good way to avoid some of that. After playtime outside, I think maybe try getting like a warm wash rag, or even having them step through a little foot bath and washing off the feet and the paws as best as possible after playing on the grass. That way they're not tracking in the allergens into your home. It'll also help keep their bedding cleaner, and it'll just be a better way because then they're not just scratching and licking and tracking it all over, especially if they suffer. Yeah. So another thing to do, like I mentioned, is to keep your lawn mowed and making sure your grass doesn't develop those seed heads. The seed heads are going to be where most of the pollen comes from our grasses. There are other species of grass that will that take a longer time before that develops. There are other things like ryegrass and fescue. Rye can be a source of allergen. But the interesting thing about ryegrass is it doesn't produce that pollen until it's an older stage, a taller stage of the plant. So you might be able to weigh how often you can get your yard trimmed and that kind of thing if you want to plant that. So bathing, this is something you should check with a vet, but bathing your pup regularly will help remove the allergens from their coat and their paws, like I mentioned. I think every 1 to 2 weeks is probably okay, depending on what your vet recommends. There are some really great shampoos out there that not only are medicated to help relieve the itch, but also moisturizing for the skin and coat.
Okay.
So that will continue to help keep that skin healthier, not getting dried out. But again, like check with your vet, because some breeds don't do well with frequent bathing.
Right.
But sometimes the medicated shampoos are a good way.
Okay.
There's one called Relief. I like Relief. It's a shampoo that contains medication to relieve itching, like I mentioned. And it also contains that colloidal oatmeal. That's basically oatmeal that's been suspended in solution so that it can be easily absorbed into the skin.
I've always wanted to know what that was.
So, yeah. So it's helpful because that really is a nicer way for that skin to be able to absorb it more effectively.
Okay.
But definitely follow directions, because some of those directions say leave on the coat for 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm sitting here thinking about
I don't know a dog that would do that.
That can hang out for 5 to 10 minutes
Like
while
with all that on them?
Yeah, the shampoo. I'm sure they're shaking and they're just drenching you with suds. But it's important to let that medicated shampoo do its job and really get down to the skin, keeping it clean. So
try for 5 minutes, I suppose.
5 to 10 if you can really get away with it. Just, practice your massage techniques and just keep them calm and say this is for your own good. So fresh and clean skin and coat makes a good one. This one has omega fatty acids, which I think is really good to soothe and hydrate, but it doesn't have that medicated product in it. So kind of check and see what you need. There's another one from Nudie. They make a dermatological solution line, and this one's called Medicated Oatmeal Dog Shampoo Anti-Itch Maximum Strength Formula with lidocaine and colloidal oatmeal. So pomoxine. So I think that one's a really good one. But again, check with your vet.
We will be posting all of this on our blog. So if you missed the names of those shampoos, don't worry. We'll be posting it to our blog at dogtopia.com in the next day or so. So stay tuned.
Okay, so we talked about keeping your pup flea-free. Just a few more things that we can keep doing to
help them.
To relieve the itch. Yes, that's the goal. Keep them itch-free. So we talked about being flea-free. There's topical medications, and now there's a bunch of really effective oral medications for fleas and ticks, which I think are really nice too. And then there's also flea shampoos. So keeping your dog flea-free means there's products like Frontline and Canine Advantix and Parastar, Revolution, Vectra. The oral medications like Bravecto, NexGard, Simparica, Trifexis, those are all really helpful as well. Make sure if you are going to use a flea shampoo that it contains perethrins or permethrins. Those are really going to be, that's kind of the active ingredient that makes the flea shampoo effective at killing the live adults. And then the next step is to make sure that you follow the directions on flea medications if you do have fleas, because sometimes those eggs will hatch again a couple weeks later, and you have to get through the whole cycle, do it one more time, making sure that you catch the whole life cycle of the flea. That's very important.
What else do you recommend for helping your dog?
So allergies, just like in humans, I think it's important to keep your home as clean as possible.
Yes.
There's varying degrees of how good we are at that. But vacuuming regularly and remembering if you have a vacuum that requires a bag to change that bag out as well is important. Vacuuming regularly, including your fabrics like curtains and rugs and things that you don't often always think about, your vents. Also changing your air filter. Making sure your air conditioning unit and your air circulation system at home is clean and free of dust and things like mold. That's going to be a bigger issue in some places of the country in the warmer months. You can also increase the fatty acids in your pup's diet, like offering more of the fish oil supplements and the omega-3s, omega-6s. That will not necessarily cure or completely remove allergy symptoms with your dog, but it will help the quality of the skin and coat remain more moisturized and reducing
less
inflammation.
Itchy.
Exactly.
Can you give a dog Benadryl?
Yes. So lastly, I think kind of as a last resort, medications for allergies definitely will help treat the symptoms. They don't treat the environmental contamination. So you can help your dog feel more comfortable with medications, but if we're not addressing what's causing the allergy, it's kind of going to be an ongoing battle.
Yes.
So medications like Benadryl do work, and sometimes they're only helpful for a small percentage of dogs.
Okay.
Check with your veterinarian always. Usually a safe dosage is around 1 milligram per pound.
Okay.
It's important if you do buy Benadryl over the counter. The drug name is diphenhydramine, and nowadays you can get Benadryl a combination with other medications like a cough suppressant
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of those Benadryls have other drugs in them. So it's really important if you're going to give your dog any kind of Benadryl, first check with your vet, and then make sure that that's the only drug you're giving them, not another combination with cough suppressants or other things. So diphenhydramine only.
Only.
Yeah. So, and you can do steroids. If it's super severe, the veterinarian will probably do some type of cortisol. Those are just more challenging and need to be reserved for more serious cases because they can have long-term lasting effects. And you pull out those big guns early, you don't have anywhere else to go at that point. So it's incredibly important just to work with your vet. But addressing some of the things in your home that can reduce the allergens in the environment, I think is a good place to start.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Yes, it's my pleasure. I hope it's helpful. And please let me know if you have any questions.
We can check to see if anyone has any questions. It doesn't look like it. We did a great job of covering lots of the, let's see.
Go on and on and on. I can keep talking about this.
Hi, David George. How do we recognize allergies in food for something that is airborne?
That's tricky. I agree with you. Hi. So food allergies can have similar symptoms. I would expect to see food allergies to be somewhat digestive in nature, things like upset stomach, vomiting, diarrhea, loose stool, that kind of thing. But it can result in itchy paws as well.
Oh, okay.
So it might be a combination, and it's possible that your pup's actually suffering from both. And then both of those things will have to be addressed. So it'll be a matter of going through a good exam with your veterinarian and kind of saying, here's what I'm feeding, here's what our home's like, here's what we're exposed to when we go out on a walk.
Okay.
And just kind of going through those things and seeing what can be done to eliminate it. And it might be seasonal. If the seasonal allergies are increasing for all of us right now, they're also for their dog. So it's possible you can just treat for seasonal allergies.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that great question.
Yes.
Does anyone else have any questions before we sign off for today? As a reminder, we will be posting all of this super helpful information to our blog at dogtopia.com. Look for the dog blog sign. We'll go over all of the medications or like the helpful tips on the plants to plant, the plants not to plant, and then just reminders for your home like vacuuming, wiping the paws, all of that good stuff. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we hope your allergies aren't terrible with this helpful information. Thanks everyone.
Bye.